Now, this weekend, all roads, as it were, will be leading to the Scottish port city of Glasgow. Famed for its Victorian and Art Nouveau architecture, Glasgow will, for the next 2 or so weeks, play host to thousands of delegates from around the world, including President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, the delegates may not escape a visit to the scenic River Clyde, or the city's legendary Scottish Opera, or the world-famous shipbuilding yards. But their core business will be a subject that is less romantic, but is now a real and present danger: climate change. You see, for years, any talk about something called climate change was almost always dismissed as a distant alarmist concern peddled by tree-hugging environmentalists and theoretical scientists. But today, you have to be living on another planet to fail to notice that something has changed so drastically around us that is difficult to ignore. I mean, what with the cold season that this year began sometime in May, way before the usual onset in the month of July, and went on till August or September in some places, or the erratic rainfall patterns that have made nonsense of that old village habit of predicting the seasons and planting times with military precision, or the droughts that used to be a generational affair but are now almost an annual ritual. And haven't you noticed how quickly floods follow drought these days? Or that now malaria can be found in places like Kericho that used to be too cold for mosquitoes? Now, the science of climate change is perhaps too complex to break down in one night, but simply put, human activities such as running of industries and driving of cars release into the air huge quantities of that gas known as carbon dioxide and its similar relatives. And these gases, known generally by scientists as greenhouse gases, have this intriguing ability to trap the sun's heat in the atmosphere, thereby increasing the overall temperatures around the world. Now, I wouldn't go into this seemingly boring science if it didn't matter to us here and now. I'd be happy to just give endless tales about which politician is defecting to which party or which rally had the biggest crowd and all that. And that is all fine, but I'm reminded of one of my bosses who once told me that there are things that are so important but very boring. And I would flip that tonight and say that there are also things that sound very boring but are extremely important. And climate change is one of them. And this is because there is simply too much at stake. You see, it may sound dreary to hear about greenhouse gases and emission levels, climate mitigation, adaptation, and all the climate mumbo-jumbo. But believe me, when there is famine, it strikes home. Real people feel the hunger. When there is less rainfall and water has to be rationed in Nairobi, it is no longer an academic exercise. When Kenya Power has to limit how much electricity you get because the dams that generate a lot of our power can't fill up, you will feel the darkness. When the economy takes a hit because tourism and agriculture are struggling because of erratic weather, it will show up in your pocket and on your dinner plate. And sadly, these things are now happening too frequently. Of course, most of the emissions that are causing problems here are in real sense generated in other parts of the world. Mainly rich countries that have run more industries and driven more cars longer than we have. Yet the impacts are greater here, mainly because countries such as Kenya don't have all the resources that they need to tackle all the problems caused by this drastic change. That is why the word on everyone's lips, including the president, as they head to Glasgow, is money. That countries like Kenya need money to cope with these increasingly severe problems. And by all means, those countries should honor their end of the bargain and give out the money. Just yesterday, it emerged that the World Bank had committed some 16 billion shillings to Kenya to help in dealing with the impacts of climate change. Locally, some counties such as Makueni, Wajir, and Garissa have also set up specific funds to deal with this growing crisis. Now, the question tonight must therefore be, are these monies really going to be used to help communities better cope with climate change impacts, or will it all end up in people's pockets? And will it be put to the right projects? And will we as the citizens care enough to ask the right questions? Ladies and gentlemen, when something that used to sound like urban legend just a few years ago suddenly begins to show up at our doorsteps, it's time to smell the coffee. That is my angle for the week.